At a fundamental level, the models say to us, mastery and perseverance are really important. Those are like the two fundamental, characteristics. Of course, this is like a very fundamental root cause analysis of there are a bunch of surface level features. If I tell you, you'll be like, yeah, that makes sense. But once you go in, why those features make sense, everything really boils down to mastery and perseverance.
You are listening to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur, a podcast for founders with ambitious ideas. Venture capital investors and other early believers tell you relatable, insightful, and authentic stories to help you realize your vision. Welcome to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Gopi Rangan. My guest today is Yiğit Ihlamur. He is the co-founder and general partner at Vela Partners. Vela is a very interesting venture capital firm based out of Silicon Valley. They invest in AI native and product-led solutions. What are these kind of startups that they invest in? What kind of analysis do they do behind the quant fund that they run? And what type of founders do they like to work with? We're going to talk to Yiğit about a lot of these topics and ask him questions about how he makes decisions and why does he say no when he says no. Yiğit, welcome to the Sure Shot Entrepreneur.
Thank you, Gopi. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to talk about those topics.
Tell us about yourself, starting with you. You grew up in Turkey, in Izmir, and then you went to college in the UK. Then you worked at Google in Silicon Valley, and then eventually you decided to become an investor. Let's start the journey from Turkey. Where did you grow up and how did you get excited about technology?
So I was born in a household of a technology entrepreneur and a mathematician mom. So that kind of defined, who I was. Since I was a kid, I was really interested in math. I was really interested in technology entrepreneurship, engineering, computers. My father was a really early on technology entrepreneur. So I saw the impact of technology in an emerging country like Turkey. And that defined who I was. I was really a geek playing, computers and, hacking stuff. I was a hacker a little bit for a while when I was a kid. I loved doing that. And then afterwards, of course, the Izmir, that's kind of west of Turkey and next to the sea. So I enjoy sea, good weather. So those are the things that define me. I love computers and swimming every day. And the journey to be an investor was something that I definitely did not think about or did not plan. I did not even know what a VC was, to be honest. I started working at Google. Before that, my education was in industrial engineering, math optimization, specifically optimization operations research. And then afterwards, University of Oxford, specifically machine learning and AI, masters in computer science. My curiosity drove me towards more math and optimization relevant things. And then joined Google. I started in Google Ireland. And then afterwards, within a year or two, I was hey, I love Ireland. I love the people, but I'm a sunny guy. I love sunny places. So, so Mountain View was the place that actually attracted me. So I moved to the Bay Area. And then within Google, I love the company. I love the people I met, my lifelong friends at Google. But after 5.5 or 6 years, I got my green card. That was my thinking, it's an incredible place. I'm learning a lot. I'm growing. But I really wanted to start something new, something from scratch. As an immigrant, it Gopi, it takes some time. Got my green card after a while. And then afterwards, by the time that I got it, Google acquired DeepMind, which was actually from Oxford. So I was wow, this is really interesting. These guys started 1 year after me, when I was there. And, I saw the technology. It was playing a ping pong game or something, reinforcement learning. I was blown away. I was this is incredible. The world is going to change. And then afterwards, once I noticed that I wanted to quit and start something new, and starting a VC firm was not in my ideal list of things to do. So exploring various different things and then meeting with different VCs and angels probably entrepreneurs are also going through that route, meeting and like trying to understand. That I was like, wow, like I'm meeting with these VCs and angels. They are like really cool people. I love them, but like they are just relying on their intuition and networks. But I was like, hey, maybe there's something here to use data science and machine learning. What if we create like a next generation investment firm? So what if like we create an AI startup investing in other AI startups? So that so it was completely like a startup thinking and with complete naivete, Gopi. I thought that like, with my co-founder Fuat, like we thought that like, hey, if we build something new here, that could be like a winner strategy. So that was like how I got into investing with no specific intention of wanting to be an investor, basically. Just wanted to build stuff.
So you are an AI startup that invests in other AI startups. That's the best way to describe your venture capital firm.
Exactly.
There are a lot of things in your story I can relate to. I grew up by the beach as well in India, in Chennai, and I grew up in an academic household, and math was, I would say, my first love. I really enjoyed math, and I still love solving problems in math. And over the years, technology has kind of become a big part of my life. Why is venture capital interesting to you?
Yeah, so the reason why it was interesting to me is like I looked into many different problem spaces. And after quitting Google, I really wanted to create impact, something that I'm really proud of working on and creates like real value to humanity. And then discovery of venture capital was like among different ideas. I could have worked on a different idea, but I decided to pick this idea because I love the idea of accelerating innovation. Delivering capital and resources to the right people and right projects is probably the best thing that I can do with my time. So I thought that like, wow, like that's really interesting. Like people are actually allocating capital and resources and time to the right people and right projects that can change the world. But this is an optimization problem. That's like a shortest path, math problem. So what if like we create like the best optimization algorithm in the world? We make ourselves obsolete from that from that angle, and we enable like the capital allocators and people who want to give those resources and connect them to those people that actually seek that. So that was like the reason why we decided to pursue this idea.
Now, venture capital is a great way to do that. A lot of startups fail, but when some startups succeed, they really transform the way we live. It grows very rapidly and scales to the various parts of the world much faster than most other businesses. It's a great way to have that impact that we all desire. I'm curious to learn more about Vela. You're a quant fund investing in AI startups. Tell me a little more about that. What kind of process do you follow, and how is this firm different from other VC firms?
Mainly math. If the listeners are familiar with Renaissance Technologies, which is a public quant fund that actually look into the numbers and decide on making an investment based on the highest probabilistic outcome. That's exactly what we do for the private markets, focused on early stage startups, even a sub-segment of early stage startups, which is AI startups. We started with the AI startups back in 2017 because we thought that it was going to be big, and we were actually kind of frustrated that we were too late, but still, I think we are still early. So we started with AI startups because we know the AI technology really well. We thought that we could assess really well. We could assess the outputs of the technology really well as well. So we focused on developer tools, infrastructure, software, AI powered B2B, deep tech, robotics, but always like AI powered. So that's been the beachhead for us. And regarding how things work, the process and stuff, there's a research process of deciding on what sort of personas or segments have the highest probability of success. And then afterwards, using those different segments, explainable segments, to source and find companies or people that fit into those, high probability segments. And then afterwards, of course, a human needs to come into the play. That's the human in the loop. That, it's me and my partner Fuat. And then afterwards, like we engage with the entrepreneurs with the short list. It's like a hit list of like segments that we want to go after. And then we build the relationship and we make an investment into those companies that are like high probability return. Regarding like the differentiation and stuff, I've noticed over the years, like it's about conviction and speed. Many VCs and investors get stuck on various different variables. It's a very large variable problem of investing in startups. Everyone cooks it in a different way. Some people like to do Michelin star, restaurants. Some people want to do delivery, and some people want to create the next McDonald's and stuff, right? Like it is very similar to the food industry. So we have noticed that like the speed and conviction is really important. And I think when you have that like probabilistic math driven thinking, then you form a portfolio in a really high conviction way. And when you meet with entrepreneurs, you are kind of like validating some of your assumptions rather than questioning. So when we reach out, when we seek for introductions to the right people, it's super fast, right? Like everything is super fast. But then afterwards, why do entrepreneurs want to partner with us is another question. You can find them, but then how do you get access to them? I think the most fundamental thing that a VC can do, in my opinion, is not to interfere with their business, first of all. You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. So that's number one. The other thing that you can do is like introduce as many customers as you can to help the entrepreneur to find product market fit. And that is the best thing that you can do as a VC. Introduce as many customers as possible. Third, once the company is breaking out, introducing VCs, I think that's great. But entrepreneur can figure that out anyways when the business actually breaks out. So I think the most important thing is how to enable the entrepreneur to get to product market fit as fast as possible. We are not in the business of education of entrepreneurs how to find product market fit. We pick the entrepreneurs that can figure it out, and we introduce customers basically. So entrepreneurs pick us because of the customer network most of the time, and the expert perspective and the conviction that we have.
The tools that you have developed mainly helps you in the first step, which is identifying these companies, identifying the founders, perhaps even before they start companies, sourcing opportunities, reaching out and being aware of what's happening in the world, in the startup ecosystem. That makes you an informed investor. And then the human comes into the loop to talk to the founders to decide whether this would be a good fit for your firm. Then of course you can add value to these founders by not messing too much with their business, but occasionally helping them in strategic ways that would be exceptionally valuable to them. I get that part. Can you give an example of a startup that you've invested in? What's the process you followed? I'm very curious about the first step because that seems to be very different compared to many other VC firms.
So let's take one of our latest investments, thunk.ai. It's a AI agent-based project management tool. And how we identified is that like we identify certain segments of entrepreneurs that we think would be successful based on the models that we have. And then afterwards we said like, okay, this segment of an entrepreneur have like a 10x more likelihood to succeed. Just to give you an example, if you were to invest randomly in the US to any $2 million raised company, your probability of success varies between 2 to 3%. So you need to make probably like 30 to 40 investments to have like a one outlier, great basically outcome for your fund. But if you identify like certain segments of this population, then you can decide on which entrepreneurs or segments that you want to spend time on. And like this segment that we have determined is like 10x more likelihood to succeed. So if you think about it, it could be 18 to 20% likelihood to succeed. So that's like a really significant jump, as you can imagine. So once we determine that, segment, then we build specific sourcing algorithms. We go and collect specific data sources just for that. And then afterwards, once we gather these data sources, we continue to look into the changes within that data. What's happening, who is starting, which segment, which entrepreneurs fit into that. So Thunk just fit into that profile. Once it fits into that, the speed is really important. And the entrepreneur was just like, really early in the process. Haven't even raised money. We reached out and we sent an email. Before we do that, of course, we study the entrepreneur and the company so much, Copy.
Like, what kind of characteristics qualified the founder to pop out on your radar?
At a fundamental level, the models say to us, mastery and perseverance are really important. Those are like the two fundamental characteristics. Of course, this is like a very fundamental root cause analysis. There are a bunch of like surface level features. If I tell you, you'll be like, yeah, that makes sense, that makes sense. But like once you go in, like why those features make sense, everything really boils down to mastery and perseverance. And how do you find mastery and perseverance? Like you can think about it in a way that like if a person actually has become a master in something, it could be like in their childhood, they could be like one of the team members of a winning team, right? Like it could be like they could be in the basketball team, or it could be like a PhD that they have gotten and they got some awards from that, but maybe they never started a business before. Or it could be an entrepreneur who started a business and persevered and had like a really meaningful outcome. So when you combine all these things, then you can have the mindset of like mastery and perseverance at a fundamental level. But in this one, like it was more about like the PhD sort of like a background, and also like starting a business before. When you combine all those, this is kind of like an incredible thing. So that's how we found Thunk. And the beautiful thing is that the team harmony is very important too. So it's not only the founder, but like how do founders work together? How do they know each other? The founder synergy, and then the founder idea fit. Like how does like the idea that the founder work on currently is connected to the previous things that they did. So all these like kind of have like scoring mechanisms that actually increase the likelihood of success. Tank fit everything basically. So great team, work before and building it again, built a company in the same space, similar space. They are doing it again. It's a great market that is going to grow. Like bunch of things together combined enabled us to find Tank.
What does the company do?
It's large language model based project management tool. So think about like a next generation Asana or next generation Smartsheet that instead of having you instrument the tool, you talk with the AI agents to figure out doing the projects for you. Like there are certain tasks that humans will do. There are certain tasks that like AI agents can do. So you kind of like work with these AI agents to help you do the task, talk with them, assign stuff, get things done, sort of a thing. So I'm really excited about that.
Now, every 10 to 15 years, there's a wave of new productivity tools that come into the market. Now, we started with spreadsheets and documents, and then we turned into more HTML based resources and now cloud resources. Everything moved from on prem on the laptop to into the cloud, like Google Docs and spreadsheets. And then more recently, in the past 10, 15 years, we saw Notion and Asana, Trello, Airtable, those kind of tools. I can see the new wave of productivity tools coming up with AI capabilities, and I can see why you are excited about this sector.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. And I worked in that area before in Google Workspace, like in Gmail, Google Sheets and stuff. So very excited about that area.
How many companies do you invest in, roughly in a year,
Yeah, we invest in 8 companies a year,
and what stage?
inception to Series A. As long as we see 100x return potential for the capital that we invest, it could be Series B too. It just we cannot have access to those because of like the check size and stuff, the fund size. But it's mainly inception to Series A.
So you invest in 8 companies, inception to Series A, sometime in the early stages. What geographies do you invest in? What's your sweet spot?
Primarily the Bay Area, but we are not like constrained like US, outside of the US as well. But like 90% is in the US, maybe within those like larger majorities in the Bay Area. But if an amazing talent comes from like, Korea or Ghana or, Costa Rica, we are really open for that too. We have investments in Korea, Japan, Germany, all these sorts of locations as well.
How long does it take for you to make those investment decisions? From the time you start tracking the company, when you meet the founder and you bring your partner into the conversation, how does the process work?
I kind of already made my decision. Before meeting a founder, before I take the first meeting, I'm kind of like, I almost want to invest. I don't go into that meeting with skepticism. I'm going into that meeting looking for things to validate or invalidate my conviction, basically. So the process is the following way. First of all, like we go through a large list of companies. Like we don't do first meetings that often. If you look into my calendar, I don't have like back-to-back entrepreneur meetings. I don't do that. Like I don't do many meetings. So when I go into a meeting, I really want to dig deeper. If necessary, I can meet tomorrow, same day, 2 days later, I can move really fast, basically, because of that.
That's very
So
unusual for a VC. Most VCs meet a lot of founders.
instead of meeting a lot of funds, I write a lot of code. We have a 10 people full-time engineering team. So I spend a lot of time with the engineering team to nail those sorts of things like conviction details. So I take the first meeting, my partner Fuat takes the second meeting. After that, the decision is made. Like it's kind of like due diligence items. We are soft commit, we are getting into details. We want to talk this and that. We want to look into the documents and then we move. First meeting I do, I don't talk about the business at all. I just talk about who are you? Why do you do what you do?
How many startups do you meet to make those 8 investments? Very few.
Yeah, very few.
Not
Very few.
800 startups.
No, no. But like the algorithm filters out like million or something a year. And then afterwards, like probably like 30 a week we analyze, maybe 40. Then among those, maybe like, 1 to 2 are like kind of like serious that we would want to go after, basically.
What's your most common reason to say no? After having done all the analysis and you meet the founder for the first time, you already like a lot of things about the company and you're just looking to validate a couple of assumptions and get to know the founder at a personal level. And after that, you might say no sometimes.
Mhm.
What's the most common reason?
If why they do what they do doesn't add up in my mind, we don't make the investment. Like it needs to make sense. The motivational reasons is number one reason why we pass, basically.
What questions do you ask to assess that?
Yeah, I go back to the childhood. I want to understand basically how they came to the place where they are currently, what sort of a environment they were born in, and who are like the role models for them, why they wanted to become the best in their area. If they're not the best or one of the best, like they should be world class. Startup game, you need to be the best, basically. So you need to show proof of doing that before. So I want to understand, like for founders that we are meeting, they already showed that. So want to understand like why they were driven to do that in the first place, what they learned during that process of mastery, and whether that fundamental they grasped it at a fundamental level that they can actually transfer it to startup building. So that's like number one. Like some people really grasp it and it's so clear, like at a very young age, 21, 22, 23, or like 35, 40, whatever. Some people really grasp it early on and they can clearly articulate it. Some people can't articulate that. So that's number one reason why I don't feel motivated to continue. Second, like, is the question of like why they pick this problem, because like if they are like that good, like they have many opportunities ahead. They could be an incredibly comfortable position in a company where they can make a lot of money. Like, why are they doing this if they are the top talent? So I want to understand that if the reason doesn't make sense, then it's not a good idea, because they may give up. Like it's just like a random thing that they wanted to work on. So some narrative needs to add up. Like, you can clearly see that when you talk through. And it's difficult to analyze these things algorithmically. That's why we go into these details in person.
So the motivation matters a lot to you. And the questions that you ask are more qualitative, more subjective than asking a math problem to be solved. I see that there's two sides to how you make decisions, the very heavy quant side and also the human side. What is your advice to founders before they come to meet you? Or what's your advice to founders even for them to pop up on your radar to say, well, this is a company I want to track closely?
My opinion is like if they just focus on executing, people like us will find them. Like there'll be more and more of Vela Partners in the next 5 to 10, 20 years that will be algorithmic and quant driven. So if you do whatever you do really well, these funds like us, including us, will find you. That's what we do. That's our job. Like you don't have to find us, we'll find you, sort of a thing. Number two is like really working on something that you're passionate about, because then it doesn't feel like it's work, like you really enjoy. Like that's how I feel about Vela. Like it's so much fun every day, every night, every weekend I can work on it. So it's your passion is like becomes, very much like, goes into the other person and get super excited. Regarding meetings with VCs in general, it's so interesting to me that many entrepreneurs, including any human being, like don't study the other person that well before coming to the meeting. Like it's kind of a very straightforward thing to study the other person. It's kind of like sales 101. Do the prospect research and understand what they did before and say a few personable things at the beginning. So most entrepreneurs, interestingly, don't do that, maybe because of some reason, very busy, or but like then not using the time wisely or something. So it raises a lot of questions. So I find it very interesting. There's a small percentage of entrepreneurs that I meet that know how to pronounce my name, which is like a, Yiğit. But like it's very rare for people to know that. Either they have a Turkish friend, or like they did Google search how to pronounce Yiğit or something. So I find that very interesting. There's like a very small percentage of people who do that, and then it's like a high preparedness sort of like a signal to me.
There are many interesting things here in the comments you made. If you do good work, it's the job of the VC to find you, and you will find them. Today, you are an exception in the venture capital world where you go and find these founders, but that might become the norm in the future. And there will be many more venture funds like yours that use technology and artificial intelligence to track and identify founders. And once that is in place, once you've identified the founder, that empathy for who you are, preparedness, doing research on who you are, even learning how to pronounce your name, goes a long way in showing that the founders care. That prospect research, like in sales, indicates that they are more than just coders or technologists or businessmen or businesswomen. There is a human side to them, and you want to relate to that.
It's a
Yes.
sales signal for sure.
You are a new VC firm, and you're building it also very differently. What is one thing you would like to change about the venture capital ecosystem to make this industry better?
Decision making, I think, is super slow, like really slow. I think it should be faster. That's why we started Vela Partners. But as an industry, in some instances, you don't need technology to make fast decisions. If you just improve the processes and philosophies and principles behind how you make investments, then you can move really fast. Say no rapidly, it's okay. No one's heart will be broken. So I think that's the main thing. If more people make quicker decisions, things will move faster. Yes or no is better than no answer. And that's why entrepreneurs get frustrated as well. No response, or like, slow response, or things like that. It's very easy to make quick decisions basically most of the time. So I think industry should improve itself. Maybe it's tooling, maybe it's culture, maybe it's something, but like something along those lines.
I think having that prepared mind makes decisions faster. When investors don't have the prepared mind, they need to spend more time to educate themselves, get up to speed, form conviction, learn about the ecosystem, talk to other experts in the industry, compare notes with themselves. They sometimes even have to wait a few days for their excitement to be validated to make sure that they are on the right track. All of those things take time. But when an investor arrives with a prepared mind like you do, it is a lot easier and much faster to make decisions. And that's also very favorable to founders. Thanks for highlighting that. We're coming towards the end of our conversation, and I want to ask you about your community involvement. Is there a nonprofit organization you are passionate about? Which one?
Yeah, I support my alumni community in Turkey. It's ACI, American College Institute. One of the things that we do as alumni group, we give scholarship to a kid in that school and be educated.
Yeet, thank you very much for spending time with me today. Thank you for sharing your unconventional perspectives on venture capital and how you follow your own path of building a new venture capital firm. Your advice to founders and your approach to how the startups ecosystem will evolve and how you're preparing for that future is very refreshing to hear. Thanks for sharing your experiences. Thanks for sharing your personal anecdotes based on your investments. I look forward to sharing your nuggets of wisdom with the world.
Thank you, Gopi. Thank you for creating value to the community. This is really helpful. Appreciate the time.
Thank you for listening to The Sure Shot Entrepreneur. I hope you enjoyed listening to real-life stories about early believers supporting ambitious entrepreneurs. Please subscribe to the podcast and post a review. Your comments will help other entrepreneurs find this podcast. I look forward to catching you at the next episode.